Hello. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Our next presentation is the Timothy Allen TAPSA 2020 Awards. So Timothy's career began in Fleet Street at the Sunday Telegraph newspaper, followed by The Independent, where he was working predominantly on features and portraits. In 2009, he landed what has to be the dream job. The BBC commissioned him to work on the landmark series Human Planet. For 2 years, he was in charge of the production's photography at a time when the first DSLRs were beginning to adopt HD film capabilities. His work has taken him to every corner of the globe, from 19,000 feet up in the Himalayas to 40 meters beneath the South China Sea. In 2016, Timothy created a photography scholarship in conjunction with the Sharjah Government Media Bureau. Each year, the scholarship awards 5 photographers from around the world, which includes a 10-day trip to the United Arab Emirates. To tell us more about it and to introduce 3 of this year's recipients, please welcome Timothy Allen.
Obviously, as I was going to say, it's a very kind introduction, but I'm actually here to introduce some other people, so you didn't need to really hear all that. Thank you for coming, and I'm very happy to be here again, the 5th time we've run TAPSA. During the opening ceremony, Brent Sturton mentioned something that really struck a chord with me. He said that he was very happy to be amongst other people because he'd been talking to himself for the last 8 months. And whilst I can wholeheartedly agree with it, not that I've been talking to myself, but that I've been talking to my family, in particular my wife and my children, and although I love them dearly, it is so nice to be amongst friends, but also to be amongst strangers again. And really, you know, I'm here to introduce you to the 3 winners we have this year from TAPSA. Just a brief overview in case you didn't get it. TAPSA is an award we started 5 years ago when Exposure first started, and we've run it always in conjunction with Exposure. This year, as every year, the number of entries goes up, the quality of work goes up. This year we had 1,600 entries, which is quite astonishing. And to give you an idea of how difficult that makes the choice, my original shortlist was 36 photographers, you'd be pleased to know. And in the end, I have to narrow it down to 5. Unfortunately, COVID has affected Exposure, as you can see, in many ways. One of the ways it's affected TAPSA is 2 of our recipients this year were unable to come. So before we go any further, I'm probably just going to honor them in their absence. And I will say to you, please to check out their work in our TAPSA gallery, which is just out and on the left, just outside the auditorium. We have Atta from Iran, and we have Natalia from Russia. And they can't be here today, so we honor them anyway. Another tradition that we've kind of started, and those of you who have been to Exposure before might know this. I tend to, at the beginning of this discussion, go back over a brief outline of what the winners previously have been up to during this year. And it's been an unusual year, obviously. I know a lot of photographers who haven't actually been working at all. So any work that was achieved through the last year should be highly commendable. And as those of you that have been coming for a while may remember, in 2017 we had a young lady called Renita from India who was chosen for TAPSA, and her story seemed to capture many people's hearts because I'm always asked, how's Renita doing? And as I do with many of the alumni from TAPSA, we're all in contact throughout the year and with previous winners. And Renita, I will just give you, since so many people ask, I will give you a brief outline of what she's been up to. You may remember her story if you were here in 2017. She shot a story on a borrowed camera in Calcutta and entered it into TAPSA and won the award. Fortunately for her, Sir Don McCullin saw her work and said in no few words that she was a small genius and a prodigy. And really, from that point, she's gone from strength to strength. This year alone, she's been in the 7 Interactive Workshop, as you can see, the Inga Morath Award, the Duke Masterclass. It goes on. She also, unbelievably, had an 8-page spread in the Washington Post magazine, not just online, in the actual magazine, along with the article, which was actually about her. She's a very, very talented young lady, and we're very proud of what she's been getting up to since TAPSA. Even more, the amount of work that she showed me from this year is quite astonishing. She's basically stringing for Reuters now, and she's moved into her own apartment in Calcutta. So well done, Renita. The icing on the cake was, she sent me this just before we came here. Said, oh, I'm doing a speaking engagement. I'm like, congratulations. You know, imagining it would be something quite small. It turns out she's speaking alongside the CEO of National Geographic. So I don't think, none of our jobs are safe from Renita, so be careful. Another success story. Last year, Senthil from India, his work was awarded during TAPSA. He's now got an exhibition here, which I highly urge you to go and see, Tamed Tuskers. He was also picked for the World Press's initiative, the 6x6 Asia Talent Award. So well done, Senthil. Anna Caroline de Lima, she was for 2018 alum. Unfortunately, she can't be here from Brazil, but she has an exhibition here this year of her work from Brazil. Tom Citrinovic, who was another 2018. This year, well, last year, me and Tom traveled to Mongolia for 6 weeks, and we shot a film about climbing Mongolia's tallest mountain together. Tom edited the film, and during lockdown, we had the chance to finish it off, because no one was working, obviously, and we published it this year. And in fact, if you're interested in watching that film, it's showing at the screening room. You may not know this, it's such a vast place, but if you go into the second auditorium, or the second big room, there is a screening room there showing films, and that film is there. It's a long film, it's a 60-minute film, so be prepared. Take a pillow with you. Finally, you may remember, this is also 2018. It was a strong year, 2018. Magda Konik from Poland, she shot a beautiful story from the Caucasus Mountains about a migration of farmers across the mountains. She went back to the Caucasus. She settled down in the Caucasus after TAPSA, and since then she started a company guiding people in the Caucasus, including, it all began because a Nikon photographer asked her to take him there. To the point now where the Georgian government have asked her to go in partnership with them to promote Georgia. They've given her a lovely new car, and they've set her up so as soon as Georgia reopens, it's game on. Funnily enough, we are planning a new film there as well with Tom and Magda. So the TAPSA family is strong and together. So enough of that. Let's talk about this year's winners. As you know, or as you may not know, at TAPSA we award talent. We're not necessarily awarding unknown talent, although we do find unknown talent. Our first winner this year is an unknown talent, though. She's a genuine unknown talent. Dilek from Turkey, full name F. Dilek. There's a story behind that, but that's for another time. Dilek is an amateur photographer. Before I show her project that she sent for TAPSA, I'm going to just talk a little bit about what she's been up to before. And really, she's not shot any stories before. Dilek is a hobby photographer in Turkey, and the images even that she's shot prior to entering TAPSA are truly excellent. Just tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here, Dilek. How is it, I mean, me, myself, when I think about Turkey, I know absolutely nothing about, I could not name a Turkish photographer. I know very few places in Turkey. What's it like working in Turkey and being a Turkish photographer?
We are lucky in Turkey because we have lots of places to take photograph, and Turkey is a really beautiful country. But sometimes being a woman in Turkey is not easy. Also being a woman photographer is not so easy because our priorities are determined by society. It's not easy to change or to break that priorities. For example, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, also I'm a lawyer. My priorities are these. If I want to break something and if I want to make something different, all people started to stop me. Also, it's a fact that men want women in Turkey one step behind. When you started to be successful, they want to stop you, they want to pull you down. So it's hard to be a woman and to be a successful in Turkey.
Just looking through your previous work, I mean, it really makes me want to go to Turkey. There's such a sort of diversity of image types there. Was there anything why did you choose to shoot these things? Do you have a particular interest in culture or anything in particular, or is it just the photography?
Our culture is very rich in Turkey, and many people don't know anything about the culture. So I want people to see my culture. I want people to see the places in my country. It's what the travel photographer actually do, I think.
Well, certainly your previous examples of work are excellent, and they truly do make me want to go there. Now, Dilek's entry into TAPSA was fantastic. I'm going to show it to you now, but before I do, it's also, there's a perfect story behind it. Prior to this story, Dilek has never actually shot what you would call a photojournalistic story. It's all been single images like this. But of course, with the advent of COVID and during the first lockdown, every photographer, myself included, had to turn their camera on something. And in Dilek's case, she decided to photograph the COVID-19 epidemic. Now, how did you start? I mean, first of all, how do you start shooting an epidemic?
First of all, when we locked down in our country, in our houses, I really get panic because I want to make travels. I was planning to make some travels and to take some photos, but we were all locked down in our homes. So I give myself homeworks. As a photographer, I have to practice. I have to do something, and I start to sit in front of my window and take photos from my window. Take my daughter's photos also. But after a while, I realized that I'm repeating myself. And the most important thing is happening outside. We all in our houses, and we don't know what's happening there. So if you really want to make something good, you have to be there. So I try to take permissions and to go out to take photos. And I think finally, after closing lots of doors on my face, I find a door to open and go out.
Well, I mean, we talked about this during TAPSA. We have 5 days of a very intensive workshop, and we often talk about our motivations to shoot photography. And Dilex is interesting because she had never shot a story before. However, you told us a great story about how you ended up getting permission to enter a hospital. Because I know in my own country, very few people have got permission to enter a hospital during the pandemic, not least because we consider this a dangerous thing to do. So how did you get permission to get into hospitals?
As you said, it's really difficult to take permission in your country. Think about it, how difficult it is in my country. It was really so hard. I wrote lots of places, I asked, I called lots of people, but all the doors closed on my face. The only thing they said me, no, because I wasn't a journalist. I don't have even a press card. They asked me why, and I tried to explain them, but I couldn't. Then I have a little bit more followers in social media, and I started to write from there. And it worked. First, Ankara municipality hear my voice, and then I started to take the disinfection period in the streets, in the subways with them. And then one of my followers from Ankara was a doctor in Gazi University Hospital, and he called me and he said, come and let's take photos together. After using social media, something became easy for me.
Well, I mean, it's a fascinating use of social media to put pressure on people to let you in. And I wonder, actually, were there many journalists, photojournalists within Turkey shooting in hospitals?
Yes, some photojournalists go and take photos in the hospitals too. But I was in hospital for almost 1 month. All photojournalists go to hospital and go out again. They didn't spend so much time in the hospitals, I think. In my opinion, sharing lots of time with people where you take photos make you invisible. After a few days, I become invisible for all the healthcare workers, and they stopped acting near me. I can take all their natural ways. So it was different, a little bit different from other photojournalists' photos.
Obviously, it's one thing to get permission to go in a hospital. It's another thing to get such intimate access. What do your you have a daughter and a son, and obviously you're married. What did your family think about this? I mean, I think most people would understand, if you're a photographer, that going to the middle of a COVID pandemic is probably not the best idea, especially in the beginning when people didn't really understand what was going on.
All my family, my father, my mother, my children, and my husband was thinking that I'm crazy. And they were all thinking that I will not take permission. First of all, they didn't say anything to me. But after taking permission and starting to work in hospital, I couldn't tell it to my husband. 2 days, he couldn't ask me anything. We were talking with each other because he's working in another city in Turkey. In the third day, when I was returning back to home, he called me and he asked me, "Where are you for 3 days? Whenever I called, you are on your car and making something. I'm returning from," and I say him, "I'm returning from hospital because I started my project." He closed the phone on my face. He didn't speak me for a week almost. It was hard. It was not easy. For 1 month and after 2 weeks during my quarantine, I couldn't hug my children. I couldn't share time with my children. It was so hard. but it worked.
So you were, during your time, you spent about a month going into the hospital every single day.
Yes, every single day,
And,
almost.
and after you would come out, you would take your, what do you do with your clothes? What do you do with yourself? And where do you stay? Like,
I was wearing two clothes on me, and I was changing my clothes in front of my house, put them in a dustbin, and then wash in washing machine. And the first thing that I do was going to shower, to take a bath with hot water. I didn't share the same room with my children in whole period. It was hard. It was hard.
it is quite astonishing. I mean, Dilek's a lawyer by trade. So this was no mean decision to decide to. You were not planning to become a professional photographer. Is this right?
No, I wasn't planning. But during all the period, after Second World War, world didn't experience such a big thing like this. As a photographer, I know I can't change the history, but I can show it. So I want to take photos, and I want to show them to people. Because I believe photographers must be the eye of the people. We can't be everywhere at the same time. But as a photographer, you can show people what's happening outside, what's happening in the whole world. That was what I was trying to do. Also, it's a way of writing history. With my photos, I know that I will be a part of history. I will be a part of creating history. After many years, people learn what's happened in 2020 in the world with our photos. So it was important.
How was your relationship with the doctors and health workers that we see here? Did you become friends?
Yeah, we became friends, and we have a really close friendship with each other. But the first time when I go there, they all think I'm crazy because I was shooting everything's photo to make them feel comfortable. After a few days, they started to think she is crazy because she's always taking photos. That also makes me invisible too. But now we talk with each other, we speak with each other. Also, we make a small exhibition in hospital, and all the patients and the healthcare workers show their photos too.
Were they concerned that you were part of the problem? Were they not concerned that you might be causing a problem, spreading COVID, getting in the way? How was that?
I think the healthcare workers did the most important thing in this period. And we didn't understand what they are doing there. When I speak with them, they understand me. They understand that I want to show what they are doing there. So they let me, and they don't have any problem with my
Presence.
presence.
Yeah. Arguably, it's the purest form of journalism is what you're doing, documenting, and it's really quite astonishing for an amateur photographer to cover this story in such depth. I mean, there's plenty more to come, but even to obviously to get into a morgue it seems astonishing that you managed to be there for all these very intimate moments. How did you deal with the problem of people not wanting you to photograph them?
First of all, I have ethics, and I know what to show people in that situation and what not to show. I didn't publish any people's face in that places.
How about...
I was writing a story with my photos, and I see in the hospital that there is just two ways if you are infected by COVID-19, recovery or death. If I am a storyteller, if I'm writing a story with my photos, I must show that places too. So I decided to go there and show all the things.
Really quite amazing. And you've continued, obviously, it's not just the hospital, it's not just the lockdown. You've continued into the world of what we now tentatively call the new normal. And the quality of the photos is still exactly the same. I think that is an astonishing picture. Where is this? Tell us about this picture.
This picture taken in Ankara, Kocatepe Mosque, before new normal. In 1 June, Turkey turned to new normal. Healthcare municipality closes the mosques and all the places. After 5 days, first case of COVID. But then, after months, in 1 June, they started to open all the places with social distance. And all municipality teams are disinfected, especially mosques before worship and after worship to make people healthy.
Well, I'm going to leave it there with Dilek. I think you'll all agree, astonishing way to tackle the COVID situation. In my opinion, the best set of pictures I've seen which have covered the COVID situation from one particular photographer. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely spectacular. Kieran is next. Kieran's actually a Brit, but he says he's from France because he's living in France, but he's actually British. Kieran's not new to the world of photography. Like I say, in TAPSA, we're very much concerned with promoting talent and where it's needed. And I think what we can offer to unknown photographers, but we can also offer it to photographers that already have a track record. And Kieran's been shooting a while. But what he's been doing more recently, and this is a symptom of the careers of many photographers I know, is self-funding trips to cover main stories. Now, Kieran entered a portfolio from the Hong Kong protests from last year. But while we were diving into his past, I found so many good stories, and it was surprising how many of them he'd funded himself. And I'm going to briefly show you another story as well as the Hong Kong one, which was the forest fires that occurred in Australia. This is Kieran. I just want you to get a sense of what you have to undertake if you're an independent photographer traveling to the other side of the world to try and shoot a story like this. Kieran, even wearing your firefighting outfit, I know there's a story behind that. How do you even find this gear? How do you get embedded with a firefighting team? And how do you even find where to go without accreditation?
It's pretty challenging. Especially in the fires, because you needed specific fire training. Most of the Australian photographers have it year on year. But for me, the most challenging thing was actually finding the right PPE equipment. At the time, it was really hard to find. And so in the end, I ended up borrowing the PPE from a retired firefighter who really kindly sent it out to me. And I met as soon as I got into
This was
Australia.
someone that you made contact with before you went to Australia. Bearing in mind, that's a 20-hour flight for us to the other side of the road. So you contacted some firefighters and you managed to get someone to send you the equipment.
Yeah, basically, I knew that it was a story that I wanted to cover, but I just wanted to make sure before I jumped onto a plane that, I had the right equipment and access. And as I said, the equipment was the challenge, to be honest with you. And in the end, I reached out to a retired firefighter who was now acting as a consultant. And I said, I'm really struggling to find it. I can't buy it online. And I offered to actually whether if I could rent his PPE. And in the end, he said, no problem at all. And he sent it to the hotel that I was going to stay in. So I flew in, and it was all there waiting for me.
And what about finding a place to embed yourself without accreditation? How does that work? Is it just a case of running towards the fires and talking to fire brigades, or do you sort that kind of stuff out in advance?
Kind of. The fires that changed really rapidly on a daily basis. So it was very much a case of making lots of calls, speaking to as many people as you could. Obviously picking up on social media too. That was really, really helpful. And then just literally picking a place and heading towards it.
And did you have any commissions before you went out there, or did you solely go on the back of your own impetus and find commissions while you were out there?
Pretty much, it started as being self-funded and self-originated, and then once I was there, I was able to pick up assignments, and so I was quite fortunate. But I always try to look for something that's a bit different as well, a different angle. I think you need to cover all bases, basically, especially financially now, and to try to offer something slightly different.
Yeah, I mean, really excellent work. And yeah, like I say, I wasn't anticipating showing this work, but I really, it's something we talked about a lot during the scholarship program, is how do photographers make a living these days, especially photojournalists, because the number of sort of regularly paid jobs is diminishing, and the number of photographers is going up, and more photographers are funding their own trips at very small margins of profit. And I just really wanted to sort of honor that fact, and particularly Kieran's story that he entered for TAPSA was shot in Hong Kong. And it's the same thing again. He knew something was going on in Hong Kong, so he got on a plane and went out there. And in the end, you went a number of times, didn't you?
Yeah, I went 4 times over a period of 6 months.
So that first time, did you have any idea, how did you get your information about where to go, what to do, where to stay even? Is this a country you've been to before?
My father grew up in Hong Kong. So as a child, we visited regularly, and it was a place that I had a fondness for and knew fairly well. But when the first protest happened and the pro-democracy movement started, you could get a sense that it could be something that was really big. And when 1 million people took to the streets in protest, you got the sense that this was just the start of the story.
I mean, this photo I think is astonishing. I often, with all our photographers this year, I've looked through their portfolios and wished I'd taken a number of these pictures. And especially this one, I just think it's such an interesting and unusual photograph. Just out of interest, when you're down inside the crowd, underneath all those umbrellas, does it occur to you to go up and try and find a vantage point, or is it something you just kind of stumble across by mistake?
Working for publications is really something that is sort of drilled into you. To get an elevated position or shoot a GV or an establishing shot is pretty much standard course. But with this in particular, it was just an incredible sight. I mean, you had wave upon wave upon wave of people. And really, if you took a shot on the ground, it just really didn't tell the story.
It's almost, it's one of the most astonishing pictures I've seen from the series. Not necessarily journalistically speaking, although it does show how many people were there. It's just such an unusual thing to behold. Really solid portfolio. And obviously, looking through your portfolio, you do have a penchant for going into the action, the fire, the fighting, the motion as it's happening. Is that something that you mind much about? Is it dangerous, first of all?
There's little elements of danger, but really it's about trying to get close to the emotion, really. And I think at various points you need to be fairly close to be able to capture the sense of what's happening.
Did you get hurt yourself during this these
Yeah.
protests?
A couple of times, yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
How do your family feel about that? You and Dilek are in a similar situation. Is that something that you think about when you go on a job like this, that maybe something serious might happen?
I try not to focus on it, really. I think if you focus on it too much, then you're almost sort of bringing it upon yourself. I think you just need to really just evaluate the situation and, mitigate any risks. But relatively speaking, compared to a lot of the other environments that you can go to, it was, the danger was relatively small.
Talk me through this picture.
This was on the day that celebrated the Chinese 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. And you could tell that basically it'd been building up for weeks. This was a sort of a landmark point. And tensions were rising. And, inevitably there was a protest that was banned, but people still protested. And so this was sort of near to the front line, and this guy's throwing a Molotov towards the police line.
How do they feel about you photographing them here? Is that an issue for these people? I mean, presumably no one wants to be identified. I see everyone's faces are covered. Is that what allows you to be in this situation?
Yeah, they were really welcoming, to be honest with you, but you did have to be careful about how you showed people, and most people were not terribly comfortable about being photographed where they could be identified, so you needed to be fairly respectful of that.
And how do you deal with that situation? For example, this lady may not want to be photographed. How do you know? How do you broach that subject? Do you just shoot it journalistically, or do you talk to these people?
I think this was a different situation because this was a largely peaceful protest, and it had a very different dynamic to some of the other protests where they were quite tense. And normally people are aware that you're there, and so you can get a sense if people are happy or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's excellent photojournalism, and the quieter moments as well. I mean, what is going on here? This picture has more poignancy than you would know unless you were there. So talk us through what's going on.
Well, again, it was part of the same day, and here this is the frontliners that they were called, who directly, faced the police, and so there's tear gas, and this chap is holding a cone, which they used to extinguish the tear gas rounds. So they would put the cone over it and then tip water through the top to extinguish it.
And are there umbrellas to do with that as well, or is it just because it was rainy season?
No, it's not for the rain.
No.
It has a kind of a dual purpose. There was the umbrella movement that sprung up from another protest series a few years before. And also they had a use because they tended to use them as a shield to protect them.
Really, really amazing. And so we spoke about this during the TAPSA, but you mentioned you went 4 times, and I said to you, how did you manage to afford to go 4 times? I know photojournalists aren't always the best paid people, especially when you're self-funding trips. So how did it work out? Like, if there's anyone here contemplating taking a trip like this, how do you make a trip like this pay for itself and profit, or did you not?
No, ultimately, over the period of time, it paid for itself. The first trip was, I picked up a couple of assignments while I was there, but it was really useful in order to, I had a better understanding of what was going on and the story. So when I came back, I had a very clear direction in what I wanted to do. And so it was much easier to pick up assignments, and then it just grew from there.
And what was the ratio between local photographers and people coming from the outside? Dilek mentioned that often outside photographers come and go quite quickly, and often it's down to the local photographers that stay for the long haul. Was that the case in Hong Kong too?
Yeah, there were a lot of foreign nationals photographing there. I mean, Reuters had a team of 6 or 7 photographers, and most of those came from outside the region.
And do you plan to continue? I know that the protests have ended, but the issue behind the protest most certainly hasn't ended, as we know. So what is your plan with this project? Are you going to continue it?
I'm not sure. I think it might be nice to do a follow-up story in a few years' time or later on this year, but really I'm sort of focused on other areas now as well.
Well, I have to say, excellent photojournalism. Astonishing set of pictures once again. Very proud to have you on TAPSA and really, really well done.
Thank you.
Okay, one more to go. And, oh, sorry, you had one more photograph there. Oh, in fact, you have one of the better photographs. Sorry about that. Now, our last photographer is Michael from the Czech Republic. Once again, Michael has been a photographer for a while already. He's been a photojournalist for quite a while. But what's interesting about the project he entered for TAPSA is that it's a project, an ongoing project. It's an unfinished project, and en masse, it hasn't seen the light of day yet. So it was quite an honor to sort of receive this as an entry. And I'm hoping we can help you to continue with this project and to finish it, because this project has been going for 6 years. I'm not going to show you any other of Michael's pictures except what he's been shooting in this project. Here's a short little video about what he's been doing. But essentially, for the last 6 years, Michael has been documenting faiths and religions around the world. And I have to say, as someone who has been traveling his whole life for a living, Michael's portfolio from this particular project is one of the most astonishing collections of faith-based pictures I've ever seen in my life. And more so than that is the unbelievable quantity of pictures. I've taken a small sample of pictures here from this project, and I could literally click for hours. It's an astonishing set of pictures, and I'm super happy to have Michael here. What I found interesting, Michael, about why you even started to make this project was you told us that growing up in the Czech Republic, prior to 1989, religion was something that you really didn't have a concept of under the socialist regime. Tell us more about why you embarked upon this project.
Well, when I grew up in socialist country, at the time when I was child, it was like not prohibited to be religious, but you would have serious problem to go to church. In a way, like you could not study university, you would not get good job. And when my parents were young, some people were also executed because of religion. So only a religious thing which I heard in my life was that religion is opium of the mankind, and it is something really wrong. And my first meeting with some religious people was when I was quite a big man, like 19, 20-year-old, and before I never even saw something like this. Not even TV, magazines, nowhere.
What was your first experience of people, a faith-based experience? What was it?
Really big experience was in 2001 when I traveled to India to Mahakumbh Mela, which is probably the biggest pilgrimage of mankind, where during 1 month about 70 million pilgrims come. And it was something fascinating when I saw what people are able to do for their gods. It was really a big, for me, culture experience. People were staring there at everything what I did there, but on the just few meters from me, there was sadhu, holy man, who was totally naked, and nobody was staring on him. They were staring on me. So it was something really what started to be very interesting for me. And I covered these religious stories time to time, but I started to cover it intensively from 2014 or so.
And one of the things we talked a lot about during the program was how you end a story like this. Michael's been shooting now for the best part of 6 years. The portfolio is well, it must be thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures. Certainly, from what I've seen, and this is the edit. The edit is in the tightest edit is in the hundreds, let alone anything else. So, how do you go about deciding where to photograph, what to photograph, in which places to photograph? Because I've laid these photos out in no particular order whatsoever, because I just want you to get a sense of the complete, all-inspiring size of the portfolio. But I know you've struggled to know even how to categorize them other than through religions. But that's not an easy thing to do in itself. So how do you amass this together, and then how do you present it?
Well, I would like to finish this project with a book showing huge diversity of religious rituals and communities around the world, but I would be probably able to photograph it till the end of my life, and it will be never finished. So like 2 years ago, I started to think about it, how to finish it, and during this 2 years, I didn't find a way. So maybe now I think maybe it will happen what happened with my war photography. I photographed this war, uprising and sufferings for 20 years. And after one battle with Taliban in Afghanistan in 2011, I just knew this is my very last fight and I will no more do things like this. So maybe I will come to some mass or some puja, and I will just know this is the last one.
Well, it's certainly an interesting question. Do you, by any chance, have a favorite image or a favorite situation in which you were photographing from this series?
I don't think so, because so many things are so fascinating that I would not say something is better than another. Everywhere I found so interesting, so ancient rituals. What scares me that some of the rituals are slowly dying. Like last January, 1 year ago, I was in the mountains in Georgia, where are Chechen Sufi communities, and only last 10 or 12 ladies know how these rituals were done, and they are slowly dying. So it will be very soon moment that the ritual will totally disappear from the world.
What? Who's this? And
This is. I try to focus also on some not so known religions, and this is ancient Vietnamese religion Dao Mao, or cult of Mother Goddess. And this lady is medium, and during the ritual, which can have 8 or 10 hours, different gods entered to her body and started to speak through her mouth, and she's dancing. Sometimes she's in trance. And what is nice that during this ritual, she gives presents to followers.
Nice. Really, like I say, I can't overestimate the breadth of stories in this portfolio, and I would hazard a guess that no one in the audience has ever seen a single one of these pictures. I certainly, many of them are new to me. I've known about Michael for a while, but such a distinctive style as well, and really, really astonishing. Where's that?
This is in Sicily. During Easter, people dress themselves like Jews, and they go around the town making noise.
One interesting thing we ended up discussing in quite depth during the program was how are you coping with the fact that you cannot travel, and also when you start traveling again, is the world going to be there the way you used to think it was, and will you be able to continue this project? I mean, most of these pictures, when you look at them, you realize just how much personal contact we have with other people, and in particular, the large gatherings of people. What do you think about the future for these kind of situations and for your work?
Well, I really follow these news about these religious rituals around the world. How does it look like? and some of them already started, not maybe some slightly different way, but I believe that it will be the same as it used to be for some of them, maybe thousands years. What scares me a little, that I try to make these photographs timeless. This is not a good example because of this wire and this electronic stuff, but I tried, most of them, I try to have them timeless, and it would be for me very difficult, not difficult, I would not continue this project if people will wear masks during these rituals, because it will be completely somewhere where I don't want to have these pictures. But I believe that it will end sooner or later, and these rituals are literally hundreds of years old, so I hope one illness will not finish them.
So, well, that's an interesting predicament. You're saying if we continue to wear masks, then you won't be shooting during that period. Is that right?
I shoot during COVID pandemic stories which are where people do not wear masks. For example, last story which I did for one Czech magazine was about breeders of tigers and lions in small Czech villages. And in these small Czech villages, people do not know about COVID. They don't care. They don't know somebody who has it. So it was quite easy to photograph them without masks.
Well, as you can see, this series of pictures goes on. And I had to make my own edit for this because I knew our time was limited. But really, it's one of the most astonishing collections of images I've seen on the same theme. So, extremely well done, Michael. I can see we're running out of time. Let's keep rolling until we come to the last one. But just, I suppose, before we go, do you have a favorite image from your collection so far?
I would not say. I have like all these images, I put them to portfolio because they are favorite.
Well, I tend to agree. I do have a favorite image, and it's one of the first ones we showed. I think it's from Poland, and it's a group of young ladies.
Okay.
Right, but if you want to see that, please look in the TAPSA gallery. It's the main image in Michael's portfolio, and it's such a beautiful image. I wish I'd taken it myself. So, thank you very much. Very well done to Michael. And thanks again. If you're interested in entering next time, it's very easy to do. It's free to do. And I hope to see you all again. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Well done.
So a big thank you to Timothy, and congratulations to the recipients. Great work. Please join us again in about 15 minutes for an extraordinary body of work by an extraordinary man, Robin Hammond. So please come back and join us again in about 15 minutes. Thank you so much.